Welcome back, YouTubers, to another budget car review for 2018. You may have noticed, if you've been watching my videos, that I've been kind of concentrating on bikes for the last couple of reviews, and I was going to drop in another bike which I've done a review on before I did this, but then I just thought, well, screw it, let's change things up a little bit, throw this in the mix, and then we'll do the bike again in about 4 weeks' time. So look out for that if you're interested in bikes. But for now, let's talk about this Vauxhall Astra. If you saw the review I did on the Vauxhall Corsa, probably about 6 months ago now, I guess, I was saying then that I'd never really had a Vauxhall, and I was looking at getting an Astra based on my experiences with the Corsa, because I thought that was a lot of car for the money. It was very comfortable, but a little bit small for me, because I'm a 40 plus kind of 6'1" guy, and the Corsa just was a little bit too small for me, in my opinion. And then this came up. It wasn't a local one, which kind of pissed me off, and it went against everything I kind of really think about when I'm thinking about buying cars. Don't travel too far because you feel obligated to buy it. I did travel too far, truth be told. I got a train all the way up to Exeter to pick this up, and kind of felt obligated to buy it. I had a lot of interaction with the seller prior to this trip up to get the car, and I asked him a million different questions, and I thought I'd covered everything, but when I got there was a couple of things that he failed to mention, and in all honesty, I don't think it was quite as honest as he was making out, in the fact that he said it was his daughter's car, she's gone off to college, she didn't need it. I think it was all, quite frankly, a pile of old crap, and I think he was a kind of private dealer, because the first alarm bell that rang for me was when he put sold as seen on the receipt. Now, most people wouldn't do that unless they had some kind of fear that the car might come back to bite them, as it were, if there's anything wrong with it. It's a bit of a dealer kind of thing to put on a receipt, so they don't get any bullshit in the future. If you say, well, you didn't tell me about this, you've already signed the receipt that says sold as seen, so tough shit basically. And he did that, and he didn't tell me there was no parcel shelf in the rear. He didn't tell me the electric window on the passenger side wasn't working. He didn't tell me the remote control central locking key thing, the fob. He didn't tell me that wasn't working unless you pretty much stood on the car. A few little bits and bobs like that. I mean, nothing major, and I've managed to fix most of it so far over the last couple of weeks I've had the car. Anyway, talking of which, let's talk about the car. It's a 2008 Vauxhall Astra design 3-door coupe. It's done quite a few miles, truth be told, but the price reflected that. It's done 123,500, but it's in very good nick, and I love the colour. I thought it was a kind of a gunmetal grey, but in hindsight, it's more of a bluey grey, really, I suppose. I mean, even on the when I did the HBI check, it said blue. But oddly enough, though, when I went to get this car, I went to insure it, and they said, "Oh, is it an automatic?" And I'm saying, "No, it's a manual." And the insurance company had it as an automatic. And even when you look on Gumtree, it came up as semi-automatic, which I'm not quite sure why, but it's not. It's a manual. Someone's been messing about with it a little bit, not massively, but they've put the VXR rear valance on there by the looks of things. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, with the centre exhaust, which is nice, but they haven't done a great job of it, because I mean, I'm quite fastidious about these things, and that's not quite straight. I mean, I bent it. It was a lot worse than that. It was sticking out like that before, and I've managed to bend it back in a bit. And that rear valance there, the black bit, that was pretty badly chipped up when I got the car. So what I did is I took it off and I resprayed it black, and it looks a lot better now. They've debadged it as well. There's no kind of Vauxhall badges on the back at all. There's a bit of an issue, which is very common with these apparently, with the misting in the rear light. Doesn't matter if you leave it out in the sun or not, even, it just stays there. I could get a new light for it. I mean, the parts for this are so cheap, it's comical. I mean, as I said, it didn't have a rear parcel shelf, so I went online to see if I could find one, and I found that nice little one there, perfectly suited to this car. It even actually matches the colour of everything else in there, the carpeting in that respect, and that was 10 quid. I went and picked it up in Plymouth, and it was 10 quid. It's pretty straight. If I can ever get this carpet up, it's pretty straight underneath here as well. The usual emergency, no kind of rusting issues, no damage, nothing to really worry about there. But I don't know whether somebody's just put that rear valance on badly, or whether it was just a cheap option to fix something that had happened at the back. Not 100% sure, because it's also got a little bit of a, that doesn't fit quite right there. Don't know. I probably never will find out. And as you can see, the panel gap there isn't perfect, but it's the perfect colour. I don't know. Actually, in hindsight, now I can see it in the sun with you guys as I'm making this video, I got a feeling that's not actually 100% the right bumper, because if you look here, that's all kind of metallic paint there, and that isn't. You wouldn't know it. Standing back and looking at that like that, you would never know it. It's only when now we're making this video you can get up really, really close and you can see the metallic elements in this paint here, which are not in here. So whether that whole bumper came as one kit, as it were, to get the centre exhaust in, or whether they replace the valance here, I don't know. I would say it's probably had a bit of a bump at the back at some point, nothing major, and they put another bumper on there. Simple as that. That would be my guess. Anyway, the wheels are spot on. There's not any damage to the alloy wheels at all. New tyres all round as well, which is fantastic, because that was one of the things that flagged up on the previous MOT. It's got a 12-month MOT on it. No advisories apart from the exhaust, which we will talk about in a minute. It's the design version. I don't really know what that means, to be honest. I mean, it's got some controls on the steering wheel. That's pretty much all I've seen, really, to be honest. Spotlights at the front. I also repainted the front splitter just down there, and I did a little bit of touch-up. I got some touch-up stick off eBay, and I touched up a couple of little things on the bonnet because somebody let birds shit all over the car, basically, and they hadn't cleaned it off, and it's kind of bleached through the clear coat, which is a shame. This light here as well, I don't know what's going on with it, to be quite honest, because it just looks like it's been through the wars. When you consider this car is only 10 years old, I'm not quite sure. That's just a little bit of polish. This one over here, more so than the other one. I mean, as you can see, there's bugs in here, there's dust. I mean, it's not faded at the front. It's just, how did all that stuff get in, and how the fuck do you get it all out again? Again, what I would probably think of doing with this, because parts are so cheap, I reckon you could probably get a new set of headlights for 50 quid, you could get a new rear light for 25 quid, so for less than 100 quid you could make that look perfect again, if it really bothered you. I mean, maybe you can see that bird shit issue I was talking about there. I mean, I have actually polished that bonnet to get as much of it as I can off, but it's still there. But then again, it is a 10-year-old car that's done 125,000 miles almost, you know, so it's not going to be showroom condition, and the price really did reflect that. It runs perfectly. There's no issue there at all. Let's have a little look on the inside as well, because it's a nice place to be. It's got the piano black interior, which I quite like, actually, to be fair. I don't like the orange lights behind everything. As I said, in the Peugeot 207, sorry, the GTI that I did, I don't like the orange kind of lights. I just think it looks old, quite frankly. But, you know, it's just a little sort of quirk of mine that I don't like that. 5-speed manual, as you can see, CD player, steering wheel controls. It's a nice little place to be. And auto lights as well. He did say it had auto wipers. It doesn't. Half leather, which isn't actually half leather. It's a vinyl, but the seats are quite nice. And in the back as well, as usual, it doesn't look like it's been used at all, but unmarked inside. So, I mean, I drove it back from Exeter, obviously, and it drove fine. It really was a nice little drive. Electric windows all round, well, the two that are in the car, of course. Now, one works perfectly fine. One didn't work very well at all, quite frankly, and he said he thought it might be the switch. Again, this was a right load of old horse cock, because, let me just get this bonnet up for you a minute, because when I got the car back home and did some investigating into why the electric window wouldn't work on the passenger side, I then discovered that somebody had unplugged it. There's the engine for you, the 1.6 Petrol Ecotec. Not much to shout about. Someone's put this kind of aftermarket air filter in. It makes a nice little roar, I suppose. New battery, but it's a clean engine bay. You know, there's nothing going on down there. There's nothing that would worry me. There's a sticker on here that says that the cam belt was changed at 96,000. Because on these, I think it's 100,000 or 10 years the cam belt needs to be done. I took the cover off anyway, because it's only a sticker there and there's no real service history, but I've taken the cover off, I've had a good look, and the belt seems fine to me. It looks like it was done around about 20,000 miles ago, so that's fine for me. Let's shut that back up again. Yeah, going back to the window, he just unplugged it basically, so nobody could get it back down, because the problem was getting it back up, not getting it down. Effectively, what was happening was the glass, as you tried to do the window up, the glass was tilting forward, and the mechanism inside was kind of detecting there was a problem and just popping the window back down. If you saw the review I did of the Kia Ceed Pro, that had the same problem on the driver's side. So I took the card off the passenger side door and had a good old route around in there, and I thought I'd gotten it working again, but then as soon as I put everything back together, as luck would have it, it started doing it again, tilting forward. It was actually hitting, as we go around, I'll show you what I mean. It was actually hitting the wing mirror, which is just bizarre. As it was coming up here, it was hitting against here, so it was way out here and tilted right up like that. So there was a massive gap here. The whole thing just effectively went like so. So I took the card off again, and I had another good route around, took the speaker out of the front door, and then you could really see what was going on. It had come off its little runner. I mean, there's basically a runner that comes up the door here and then bends round the window, and it had come off that. So as it was coming up, it was just falling about everywhere. You basically take the two bolts off, just there somewhere on the passenger side. You take the two bolts that hold the glass into the frame, the cradle as it were, for the electric window, and then you move it back into its channel and then bolt everything back up, and it seems to be working again. It's a little bit sticky, but I got a feeling that's probably partly due to the fact that it hasn't been used in so while, because somebody just unplugged it. So I've got some silicone spray and I put that all the way down the channels. The odd thing is, now it does work to a fashion. It stopped going back up again on the driver's side switch, so you can get it up and down again on the passenger side, which is the one you want really, I suppose, and you can only get it down on the driver's side and not back up again. So I got a feeling maybe I squashed a wire in the switch itself, either on the driver's side or the passenger side, or the connections are dirty. And again, another very common problem with these is the switches for the electric windows. They kind of, not corrode per se, but you need to get them apart and get some contact cleaner in there on a baby bud and just clean them up, put them all back together. It normally fixes any kind of issue, so I might do that. I might just sell it on the premise that there's a slight issue with the electric window, and you know, you can fix it yourself, kind of thing, you know. I like the car. I mean, you know, enough about the negatives. I do like the car. I like the way it drives. I like the way it sounds inside. We'll talk about that when I start it up in a minute. You'll see why I like it inside, not so much outside. It's comfortable and it's cheap. I mean, you can pick these up between £1,500 and £2,000. Obviously, the higher spec models go for a lot more. You've got the 1.6 turbo, the 2-litre turbo, the SXIs, the SRIs, and the big boy, the VXR, which are still a little bit beyond my price range, quite frankly. But I wanted to try another Vauxhall, a larger Vauxhall, so I could say, right, okay, well, I've tried the Vauxhall Corsa, I've tried the Vauxhall Astra. As I said with the Corsa video, I don't think I'd go for a Vectra because they're just too much travelling salesman, old man type cars for my liking. You know, maybe the VXR if one came up cheap enough. I don't know, but I doubt it. But I'm quite happy with the way this car looks. I'm quite happy with the way it drives and stops. There's no real issues on it that I've found, apart from the ones I've already mentioned. It looks sexy as hell, I think, and it's only 10 years old. It doesn't owe me much more than about 1,400 quid so far, because I have spent some money on it. New floor mats and you know, just little sundries that I've done to make things look a little bit better. I think it's probably worth around about 1,600 quid, something like that. I mean, I'm going to put it up for 1,600 with the premise that I'd probably take 14.5, 1,500, something like that, you know. And I think 1,500 quid for a car that's 10 years old, brand new tyres, immaculate wheels, immaculate interior, and a nice colour. As I said, 10 years old, I think that's a good price, very good price. But there are a lot of them about, so I don't expect this to fly out the door. I think it's going to take somebody who really likes the look of the car and the fact that it's relatively new. They're going to be the one who buys this, and it's probably going to be a younger person because of the exhaust. Now, talking of the exhaust, I will start this up so you can see what I mean. On the way back from Exeter, it wasn't too bad because we were doing a constant speed, so you know, you couldn't really hear it. I'm going to put this into neutral a second, bear with me, and you will see exactly what I mean. Alright, let's get this bad boy started up. I'm hoping the phone will pick up the chaviness of this exhaust. It really, I mean, from this kind of angle, and you know, you can't really hear it that much. It's only when you really rev it that you start getting this kind of sound. Not my cup of tea, if I'm honest, but I think somebody younger, somebody late teens, early 20s is going to look at that and think, well, yeah, I like a bit of that. Induction kit, centre exhaust, decent bodywork, there's no real dents. I mean, there's a couple of little thicks here, and they will polish out, you know, if you're that worried about them. But generally speaking, the bodywork on this car is pretty spot on. You know, I think it may have had a tiny little bump at the back at some point, but that's pretty much it. I think it's been relatively well looked after. I mean, I think it probably was owned by a girl, but I just don't believe that the guy that sold it to me, I don't believe that it was his daughter. I just get the feeling I was blagged a little bit, and that's fine, you know. He's got to live with that, I guess. You know, I'll probably go online next week and find he's selling another car, but, you know, hey-ho, such is life. Oh, and I also painted the brake calipers red, like I sometimes do, because they were looking a bit tired, a bit rusty. So I got the wheels off, and I just literally copper brushed them all to bits, and I painted them red. And I think that looks pretty cool. Anyway, as usual, if you've got one of these and you've got any questions, any comments, you've done bits and bobs to yours, I mean, I think I would buy another one of these, but I'd like to have a 1.6 turbo or the 2-litre turbo. I don't think I'd go for the VXR because it's too chavvy for me. It's too young for me. That's the problem. I mean, a guy on the forum the other day, I was chatting to him about these and the VXRs and everything else, and I said I preferred the Corsa VXR looks to the Astra VXR. And even he said the problem with that is anybody above 25 years old driving a Corsa VXR looks a little bit midlife crisis, you know, just looks weird and funny. So I don't think I'll be going down there, because that's probably the general consensus. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you've got any questions, like I said, drop them in the comments. Any statements at all, and any kind of questions, just drop them in there. Always nice to see you guys are watching the videos and, you know, and answer any questions you have. Look out for the new bike video as well. That'll be coming up in a couple of weeks' time. I'll drop that in probably July sometime. So look out for that. Okay, take care now, guys. Thanks a lot.